Bubba Wallace had already been spun out, lost track position, and watched his race fall completely apart in the final laps at Watkins Glen International. And then, just when it seemed like the afternoon could not get any worse, he found himself stuck behind Christopher Bell at the worst possible moment, unable to make pit road, watching more time and positions disappear. By the time the checkered flag dropped, Wallace had gone from starting 18th to finishing 29th, and the frustration that had been building all afternoon was about to become the biggest story of the day. Because after that race, Bubba Wallace walked straight up to Christopher Bell on pit road, and what followed was one of the most talked about post-race confrontations of the 2026 NASCAR Cup Series season. To understand why Wallace was so fired up, you have to go back and look at how his day actually unfolded at Watkins Glen. The race itself was dominated from start to finish by Shane Van Gisbergen, who started from pole, fell 29 seconds behind the leader after his final pit stop, and still won the race by 7 seconds over Michael McDowell. Ty Gibbs finished 3rd, Chase Briscoe 4th, and Tyler Reddick 5th. SVG was simply untouchable on that road course. But further back in the field, the race was messy, chaotic, and deeply frustrating for multiple drivers, and nobody felt that more than Wallace. His afternoon had actually shown some promise earlier on. He beat Chase Elliott at the line to score a stage point late in stage 2, a small but meaningful result on a difficult day. But with 14 laps to go in the final stage, everything unraveled. John Hunter Nemechek, running on fresher tires, drove deep into turn 1 and tagged Wallace in the right rear, spinning him around and dropping him to 29th. Typical FST, Wallace radioed as he rejoined the race. Nemechek ultimately rallied all the way to a 10th place finish, his best of the 2026 season, while Wallace was left with a damaged car in a race that had completely collapsed around him. Then came the second problem. With approximately 8 laps to go, Wallace was called to pit road. Coming through the carousel section of the track, Bell and Todd Gilliland were right on his bumper. Bell's team was monitoring who was pitting, and they relayed to him that the number 23 was heading to pit road. But the message arrived too late. By the time Bell received that information, he already had a run built and was alongside Wallace entering turn 6. Wallace had no room to cut across Bell's nose without risking a collision. So he was forced to lift, slow down, and let Bell, Gilliland, and Riley Herbst all pass before he could safely make pit entry. That sequence cost Wallace critical time and track position at the absolute worst moment of an already ruined race day. And it is important to separate the two incidents clearly. Bell did not cause the spin. That was entirely Nemechek. These were two completely separate incidents. Two separate layers of frustration, stacking on top of each other within the same brutal final laps. After the checkered flag, Fox Sports cameras found Wallace and Bell standing on pit road in what appeared to be a very heated exchange. Wallace was visibly animated, talking with his hands, walking away at one point, then turning back around when Bell responded with something that pulled him back in. Bell, known throughout the NASCAR garage as one of the calmest and least confrontational drivers on the circuit, remained composed throughout. He mostly listened and answered without escalating the situation. The Fox broadcast booth noticed immediately. Mike Joy said, "Bubba Wallace and Christopher Bell had a few words after this was over." Kevin Harvick then added, "I don't think we're good right here," to which Joy replied, "But they'll sort it out." That commentary captured exactly what every viewer watching at home was already thinking. Two Toyota drivers, same alliance, standing face to face after a race, one of them visibly furious. And nobody outside that conversation knew why. There was no audio. There was no statement from either driver. There were no post-race quotes addressing what had just happened between them. Just a clip spreading fast with nothing to explain it. And that information vacuum was filled almost instantly by fan speculation across social media. The moment the video hit X, the reactions piled up fast. One user wrote, "I forgot everyone is supposed to hurt their own lap times just for Bubba." A fan named Chris Osborne went harder. "Christopher Bell has forgotten more about racing than Bubba will ever know. He's literally been in the best equipment for years and gets embarrassed by his teammate every week." A user named Ken added, "So, what's the drama queen's beef? Is Bell supposed to let the two cars behind him pass him while he gives Bubba room to stay in front of him to the pit entry? Hell no." The core argument from the critical side was straightforward. Bell had cars behind him, had his own race to run, and taking the inside run was simply racing. From that perspective, Bell had done nothing wrong and Wallace had no legitimate complaint. But other comments moved away from the racing incident entirely and turned into broader attacks on Wallace's career and season. One fan wrote, "Bubba's upset he can't win in the best equipment," pointing directly at the contrast between Wallace and his 23 XY racing teammate Tyler Reddick, who had been dominant throughout 2026 with multiple victories, while Wallace sat 10th in the standings without a single win despite driving comparable equipment. That is the pattern that plays out almost every time Wallace is involved in a visible post-race moment. The conversation rarely stays focused on the incident itself. It becomes about Bubba Wallace as a driver, as a competitor, and as a person. Reporter Steven Toronto offered the most detailed and careful breakdown of what might have actually triggered the confrontation. Coming to 8 to go, Bubba was called to pit road in the ESCs, passing turn 1 with Bell and Todd Gilliland on his bumper, but coming out of the carousel, Bell got a run to Bubba's right side, and the 20 team didn't inform him that the 23 was pitting until Bell was alongside him. It put Bubba in a tough spot getting to pit road as he couldn't just try to cut across Bell's nose. Cody Ware was there and limping around, and he had to slow down to let Bell, Gilliland, and Riley Herbst pass just so he could make pit entry. Toronto also added, "Honestly, I didn't hear Bubba say any crosswords towards Bell over his radio, so it's hard to know definitively." That breakdown stood apart from the rest of the reaction because it did not pretend to have all the answers. It laid out the timing, the pit road sequence, and acknowledged that real uncertainty still existed, which, as it turned out, was exactly the right approach. Fox Sports was also taking serious heat from NASCAR fans after the race. The broadcast missed Wallace's spin by Nemechek in real time. Viewers saw the aftermath, but never the contact that caused it. Fox also missed Cody Ware's hard crash into the tire barriers with 10 laps to go, Kyle Busch running out of gas, and Josh Berry being spun by Cole Custer before Berry's chaotic final lap incident with Carson Hocevar. One frustrated viewer summed up the sentiment online: "We may never know because Fox sucks." The absence of audio and full replay coverage of the Wallace-Bell exchange directly contributed to the speculation that followed, giving fans nothing concrete to work with and leaving the story wide open for interpretation. Then came the statement that reframed the entire narrative. Freddie Kraft, Wallace's spotter and longtime ally, saw the speculation spreading across social media. He saw fans turning a post-race camera clip into a full Bell versus Wallace rivalry storyline, and he stepped in with a short, direct public correction responding to Steven Toronto's original post. Kraft wrote, "You shouldn't speculate. Bubba wasn't mad at Bell." 5 words that changed the entire story. If Wallace's own spotter is publicly and clearly stating that Wallace was not angry at Bell, then the feud narrative loses almost all of its foundation. Maybe Wallace was walking Bell through exactly how the pit road sequence had played out from inside the car. Maybe the frustration was directed at the broader situation, the Nemechek contact, the communication timing from Bell's team, the track position lost at the worst possible moment, and not at Bell as an individual. Maybe the body language, captured by broadcast cameras and shared without context, made the exchange look far more explosive than it actually was. The stakes behind all of this matter significantly for both drivers. For Wallace, a 29th place finish after starting 18th compounds what has already been a difficult 2026 season. With teammate Reddick stacking up victories and the playoff picture tightening by the week, Wallace cannot afford results like Watkins Glen. For Bell, this race marked the 6th time in 7 races he finished outside the top 10. A prolonged rough stretch for the defending All-Star race winner heading into Dover Motor Speedway. Both drivers are separated by just 2 points in the overall standings, with Wallace 10th and Bell 11th, and both operate within the same Toyota alliance connecting 23XI Racing and Joe Gibbs Racing, an alliance built on shared resources and strategy that neither team can afford to fracture over a misread camera clip. Kraft's public clarification was not just informational, it was a deliberate, immediate move to protect that alliance and prevent one post-race conversation from becoming a week-long feud narrative. Bubba Wallace is emotional. He wears his frustration openly and publicly. That is part of who he is as a competitor, and it is never going to change. But what happened at Watkins Glen on May 10th, 2026 is a textbook example of how fast a story can be built on nothing. A camera catches a heated-looking moment, fans immediately choose sides, social media turns it into a controversy, and then someone with actual direct knowledge steps in and says, "Slow down, that is not what happened." Did Bubba Wallace confront Christopher Bell on pit road? Yes. Was he actually mad at Bell? According to Freddie Kraft, no.